It's 5 to 9, and good morning to you wherever it is you're at. Delighted to have you with us. Keep your comments coming in. Ronan O'Gara, good morning to you.
Adrian, how are you?
Good, thanks. You're looking very relaxed there for a man who's just over 24 hours out from the biggest game of the season.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but it's another week. It's an important week, big game for the club, big game for us, home quarter-final. So it's exciting. This is why we get involved in the game. So it's good to be relaxed, I think, but we know that there's serious business to be done as well.
Is all the planning from your point of view done now, or is there still, do you use that last 24 hours to lock more stuff off, or is it all done and dusted?
Yeah, you do, kind of Thursdays are big training, so we had average training yesterday, so you have to kind of, I suppose, pick the key points out of that, present it to your players, and then we kind of do what's the captain's run, which means that the captain obviously and the leaders in the group take that session, and I suppose a time for the replacements or finishers, whatever way you want to call them, they get more time, I suppose, in the position that they could be featuring in tomorrow. So kind of not much intensity, but you need to be mentally alert, obviously.
Montpellier, you probably couldn't have handpicked better their opposition, obviously, last weekend in the sense of Bordeaux, and whatever about the outcome, and Bordeaux won that match. But how much of a help was that, given how well you've got to know Bordeaux over the last few weeks?
Very little, really. I think
Right.
it's very little transfer, obviously, with the history of the French home and away record and how difficult it is. But then also you're looking at a different competition, different referee. And it's crazy how quickly, I suppose, teams lose and get form in France. So, I mean, the reaction, I suppose, of a lot of our French players would have been they would have preferred an Irish or an English team in a quarter-final. Going against their own makes it, I think, a little bit more difficult for them mentally. But I suppose the most important thing is that we're playing at home. It would be far more difficult to go into Montpellier, but they've already come here and won in the top 14, so they were in better form, and that did happen. I think we've got better as the season has gone on, so tomorrow is a good opportunity for us.
I remember chatting to you 12 months ago about that. Almost this exact point of the season where it's that week-on-week nature of every game almost being a season-defining game, and sort of post last weekend for yourselves, I guess it's in that mould now from week to week, both in terms of Europe and domestically as well. What or how much did you learn from last week or last year that you're now been able to apply to this type of a run-in?
Yeah, it's actually got. I think it's been. Is it 3 times in the history of the top 14 over 100 years? I think with 2 weekends to go that we don't know anyone for the top 6. So it's crazy how.
Incredible.
Yes. So, I think, as you say, learning from last year, we were always, kind of in the top 2 in the league last year. And we put a big emphasis on that, but I probably think with a little bit of hindsight, there's different ways of probably trying to achieve what you do want to achieve. So the focus this year is to being in the 6, but as we know, getting into the 6 is going to be very difficult, like it is for every other team. We're not in a better or worse position than anyone else, but as you say, what becomes interesting from this week on is that hopefully you play a quarter-final. If you proceed, you play a semi-final, then the following week it's essentially a 1/8 of a final against Stade Francais. It's your second last league game, which I don't think there'll be a season like this for 4 French teams anyway, that they're competing in quarter-final stages of the Champions Cup, but also trying to keep their domestic hopes alive. So it makes it fascinating, and put emphasis on your group as opposed to your team. And with that, that becomes very important. The fact that I suppose how you've managed all your players since last July, because some people are under rugbyed, some people are over rugbyed, and you're trying to just get, I suppose, the energy levels at that level where you have enough for 80 minutes, which is always a very, very delicate balancing act.
Can I ask you just to loop back to something we were chatting about earlier in relation to how you're using the next 24 hours? How are you managing, like, are you using that time to have individual conversations with people, like either by way of arm around the shoulder stuff or a bit of prodding or poking or tactics, or how specifically will you use that 24 hours?
Well, we'll train at 2:00, and there might be a little one or two nuggets in the video of training yesterday for a few guys, but essentially, you know, I mean, you just, I suppose that's where trust comes into it. I think you gotta know your players, and kind of, I suppose, if something jumps out at you, you'll be able to tweak it, but what you don't want to be doing either, like at this stage, when they get into the heat of battle, are they going to remember the conversation tomorrow as of today? I'm not too sure, Adrian. So I think you're trying to declutter them and make sure that they're kind of excited for what's ahead. And you know, I think the interesting thing for me is that they kind of trust their instincts and get to that mental space of trusting their autopilot, and it becomes automatic for them, and they play with flow, and they play with, I suppose, freedom, and within a roughly defined framework, as opposed to, I need you doing this here, you know.
Yeah, you talk about the heat of battle there. There was another clip doing the rounds this week. I'm sure it wasn't lost on you. What happened between yourself and the Toulouse coach?
Just a difference of opinion, you know. That happens. It was very, very controlled, you know. It's kind of just difference of opinion around the tackle, whether arms were used or not. I said from the video, you can see he clearly raps, and he just didn't agree. So that's okay, you know. You kind of just make your point and move on.
He had a cheeky little wink to his coaching staff, I presume, which felt like, you know, I'm a die-the-grave man to be winding him up.
Yeah, exactly. But sure, that's, you know, this part of the cinema, as they say in France. That's I think a lot of coaches, or a lot of people, actually enjoy screen time. It's fascinating. I think the emphasis they put on the media over here, the fact is that maybe the more screen time you get, the more important you are. While I suppose in the business of high performance, it's what you do with your group and what medals you've won in your career, and that's the most important thing for me.
Of course, we wouldn't get carried away with any sideline antics in this country. I mean, it's not like there's been a handshake between two hurling greats that's been under the microscope here all week or anything.
Sorry, Owen, I don't have I'm just looking at a dark black screen, so that's why I didn't say hello at the start. Excuse me. I
not at all.
He's always lurking here, Ronan. You just always bear that in mind. He's lurking somewhere.
A good carry, man.
Did you see the Cody-Javeline handshake?
I did, yeah. I did. But I only saw the clip, you know, and I think there's always, to comment accurately, you need context, you know, and I hadn't seen anything throughout the game. I didn't see the body language of either of them through the game or at the end of the game, but obviously it was a cold handshake. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I saw somebody saying afterwards that it's well possible the two of them were laughing away about it afterwards, which I think we should all bear in mind. Like, when you're talking about these things, we tend to get very po-faced about them, and the reality behind the scenes might be something entirely different, of course. Had you any calls from the Munster group this week, if I can be that specific about it? Anybody on to you saying, listen, we need a steer on this or that ahead of the game tomorrow?
No. It's I don't have any links really with the current group. You know, I've friendly with a few players, but there's great value in the saying, when you're gone, you're gone. So.
What if the call was to come? What would you be saying?
Well, you can't be as inaccurate as we were. If you want to take down a championship team like Toulouse, you've got to be accurate. We turned over the ball 18 times when we had the ball within our control. So that's skills. That is our skills let us down under pressure. Is that because we were playing in a fantastic soccer stadium where the crowd were pumping and they got under our skin, or did we lose concentration and exit from the shows that have worked for us well all season. I think there's a combination of reasons for why we didn't get the job done last weekend, but I think they'll see enough from our scraps to give them a lot of confidence. And you also, I suppose, combine that with their performance in Thomond Park. I think it was in a COVID stadium where there weren't supporters, and Munster had them on the ropes, but they didn't have the knockout punch. They tore them apart at times, and I remember watching that game afterwards, just reviewing it for myself. They really stressed Toulouse. What Toulouse most definitely have an advantage is that they're mentally very, very strong. So, I mean, if they go behind, they still have that capacity to win the big games. And I think you saw again for people who watched it, the value of Dupont. It wasn't with the ball; it was just him chasing and harrying Brice Dulin to force a rush kick and charge down 7 points. That's immeasurable in close games. Munster, I think, will have seen enough about how they can go about dismantling Toulouse.
And had it not been an empty Thomond Park last year as well, when you talk about that belief to come from behind, maybe that gives Munster that extra kick in that fixture. So I think that's an interesting element going into the Aviva Stadium this weekend, is that if that feels like a real Munster home game, and if the two sides haven't moved too far apart in the last couple of years, it could have a really significant impact on the outcome.
Yeah, it could. And I think it's going to be tight. I think, obviously, it seems like there's a good spell of weather over Europe at the minute, so you're going to have a fast pitch. The Aviva is brilliant for playing, I suppose, high-tempo rugby, and also there's space because it's a proper rugby pitch for a really effective kicking game. You'll find at times that Ramos will be in the backfield on his own, so it'll be interesting, I suppose, tactically to see how Munster go about finding space against them, but there will be space. But you still got to remember that Toulouse have 10 of that 23 Grand Slam winning team on their books, so they have quality everywhere. But I just think the Colby factor, him taking him out of that, the X factor that Dupont and Colby had together, is something I feel that Toulouse are missing. Is it enough to stop them? I'm not sure.
A player in the backfield on his own is made for a Ronan O'Gara style ball on the string, kick to the corners. Yeah,
it most definitely is nowadays. Yeah, if you're 14 in the front line, especially with the 50-22. So attacking, kicking games, I think what separates the top teams. I think you look at England a few years ago were really, really excellent with probably 5 kickers in their back line. I think Saracens were doing it really well for a period of time as well. Finn Russell for Racing does it really well. Obviously Leinster attacking kick threats are very, very hard to defend. So it is an area I think that's underappreciated in the game for unlocking, I suppose, these kind of rush defences.
It doesn't all need to come from the boot of Joey Carbery, I guess. Is that the part of what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. The way the game is going, if you have a 13 who's accurate with his foot, it makes such a difference, because especially kind of from your 22 to the halfway line, how defences, I suppose, measure up in terms of where their 11, 15 and 14 are. If they're deep, you're going to exit with your hands. But if they're not deep, it's better if you can kind of go 10 to 13, and 13 has a decision depending on what the defending winger is doing. If their winger and 15 push up, he can kick it in behind him. If not, he just plays a pass to his 15, and you see that with Ireland, with Hugo Keenan kicking in the wide channels, and Simon Zebo from Munster with his left foot especially. It becomes a very, very hard option to defend.
I noticed in your Irish Examiner column this morning you were talking about how well got Joey Carberry is in France. So I don't know. I part of me was a bit surprised by it almost, because there's a little narrative that is taken on here now that maybe Joey Carberry would be better served at 15 full time, and you're bringing in one of the other young bucks at 10. But that's not your reading of it, or is it?
No, because it was more the French staff. I think when I'd say this comes from the Ireland-France game, and on reflection, I'd say these people have poured over the video 10 times. And I think, I mean, he's going into that game with so little Test rugby, if not Champions Cup rugby under his belt, and to put in a performance like that, I think they fear his running threat, his capacity to play in behind the pods of forwards and go through the hole. He has a blistering pace, but I think we haven't seen that frequently enough, probably in the last 6 months. But you remember the early stages of his career, he was doing it every second game. I think his big point of difference is his running threat.
Yeah. So is that a confidence thing that just ratchets up over the next little while? Confidence in his own body, even?
It's very interesting, because I think when you're an own half, probably the areas he was probably told to work on is putting more structure in his game and bringing out the best in players around. And sometimes you forget what got you to this point. And I think when you look at Joey Carbery, all his rugby career, he was a brilliant runner, epitomised, I suppose. We'll remember that break against in Murrayfield when he had the power to break through the two Scottish forwards and throw out a delicious pass left to right to Keith Earls for Early to score. But he was doing that in a blue jersey as well, very, very well. But I think for Munster, the fact is that hopefully now this is his patch to drive on, to kick on, because for the last 24 months he's been really, really, I suppose, challenged by differing lower limb injuries.
Is it a case where he's essentially just stripped it back to the basics then, on top of the injuries, to try and, I guess, get the bread and butter part of the out half role down, and it's about refinding that spark, having, really sharp, like his place kicking has always been excellent, but it's noticeably excellent at the moment, and then also the kind of structured playmaking element of his game as a number 10. Is it just about nailing those down and then adding the spark back to his game now over the next little while?
I would even strip it back even further. I would just be looking for him to present himself fit every Monday for 20 weeks. You know what I mean? If he can put 10 games in a row together, which he probably hasn't, I would say his performance graph is so stop-start that it just makes, I suppose, any capacity to have momentum extremely difficult. And if you look at it, I suppose, with a little bit of detail, we can see over the last 24 months it's been 2 stop-start. But now, hopefully, the injuries are behind him, and all he needs to do and all he needs to do is understating it, is try and present fit, so he's on the pitch every week. And if you're getting minutes in that jersey, in that position, with the experience he now has, with confidence in the body, he's just going to get better and better.
We touched on you last week about Mike Pendergast, and obviously it was waiting to happen, and now it's since happened. I wondered afterwards if the appointment and the style that he's been used to coaching at Racing, particularly that sort of ambitious, expansive style, whatever you want to call it, is it just a case? So I suppose Munster fans are probably wondering, is he coming in now to do that with us, or is it a case that he's just a very good coach and he can come in and play whatever he has in front of him?
Yeah, he's both, I think. What is, I suppose, really important to stress to the listener is the fact that he has a very, very suitable personality for coaching, and the fact that he doesn't really get stressed. He does get frustrated, but he's really good at channeling that for himself, and then I suppose empowering his players to play exactly how he wants to play the game. He has certain ideas which he's very strong on, but I think he's also smart enough to understand the DNA of Munster and what make Munster players and supporters tick, and how you combine that together. And that's very important as well. But in terms of a style of playing, he would be all over, I suppose, all the nuances of attack play. But I think the key to Mike is that he wouldn't be just stuck in one model. He's played a 1-3-3-1, he's played a 1-3-2-2, he's played a 2-4-2. So he has plenty of, I suppose, tools in his toolbox. It's just which one he feels best at bringing out. But I think it'll be more around the environment, but also among the strategy and people wanting to get better with a framework that will see Mike excel.
channeling that frustration? Is that something you've mentioned before? Your good mates, you've chatted to him about?
I haven't been taking any of your bait yet this morning.
You've batted it away very well. You're in game mode already.
You're chipping away nicely. You're hoping that I'll crack.
I'm taking that as a yes.
Exactly. You're right.
Listen, very best luck tomorrow. Really look forward to catching up with you again over the next few weeks. Thanks for wrapping on.
See you next week, boys. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ronan O'Gara on the line there ahead of fascinating weekend of, and like, look at it, he's obviously joking about it there, but why would you not? Well, one of your best mates is so highly thought of. Actually, what I was going to ask him was why is Mike Pendergast so special? But he answered it. Like, that's that ability that he's talking about. Like, it's got head coach material written all over it as well. Graham Roundtree just been appointed. They could have a very successful 20 years ahead, but it did strike me as he's that ability to channel your frustration and not be what was the word he used? Not be stressed about it. It's incredible.
It's quite an elitist mindset against Graham Roundtree out there.
Jesus,
what
wow!
has he
I'm
done to
really chipping away at the old Munster people this morning, haven't they?
Yeah, we all just
that annoy you?
Hate you, yeah. Oh, really? My weekend has been ruined.
Well, it definitely rankled a bit. There was some people in touch here that were talking
better
about
believe it.
P-Well74 on YouTube says, Owen, get out of Dublin and you might realise that not everyone's interested in the Champions Cup and the EPL. In the UK, obviously, there are far more people going to Munster hurling championship matches than are going to Munster rugby.
Like, I mean, he does make a point. Yeah, maybe. I just need to get out of this goddamn city. Go see the world. Go see the country. Speak to the people.